Welcome to the WACO Experience, an American story.
We, the people.
With your host, D. Scott Smith.
In order to form a more perfect union.
Interviews with leaders in business, government, and nonprofit organizations.
Promote the general welfare.
Jobs, products and services, and infrastructure for strong communities. Secure
the blessings of liberty.
The WACO Experience is an American story, a story of communities across America. It is your story.
So our vision at the Cove is to end youth homelessness in the heart of Texas, and that's a really big vision. But in terms of the causes of homelessness, the overwhelming driver of that is poverty. What we mean by ending homelessness generally, but ending youth homelessness, that it becomes rare, brief, and non-recurring.
Welcome to the WACO Experience, an American story. I'm your host, D. Scott. Find information about the program, podcast replays of our stories, and information about our sponsors online at thewacoexperience.com. Today's guest is Dr. Tim Packer, Executive Director at The Cove. In July of 2024, Central Texas television station KXXV ran a story titled, "It's in America, It's in Waco. The Rise in Youth Experiencing Homelessness in Central Texas Neighborhoods." The story cited Julian Helt, the homeless and foster liaison for the Waco Independent School District. 4.9% of students in the district are homeless. That's over 1,000 of our youth. As we just heard from Dr. Packer, the primary cause is poverty. Today we're going to hear how the Cove is helping our students and keeping them on track to graduate with a high school diploma. This program is made possible by our sponsors, White Bluffs Construction. You've probably seen the work of Seth DeMott and his team at White Bluffs Construction, such as at the Waco Waffle Company, custom building, home remodeling, and right now, get on a schedule to build your patio, deck, or pergola. Call Seth at 254-227-2002 and visit the website at whitebluffsconstruction.com. We had healthcare insurance questions, and Monica Shannon of Texas Healthcare for You provided answers. It's Medicare open enrollment until March 31st. Let Monica help you and your family. Call her today at 254-339-3421 and visit the website txhealthcareforyou.com. That's txhealthcare, the number 4 and the letter U.com. Biddy and Bo's Coffee at 110 Franklin offers hot and cold beverages, catering, and provides employment for people with disabilities. Drop in today at 110 Franklin in Waco. Chord Buddy is the world's best way to learn guitar. 100% U.S. made, this learning system will have you playing real music on a real guitar right away. Learn to play guitar today at chordbuddy.com. Comic Fest Waco is coming April 5th. This free and open to the public event is all about literacy. Comic books and graphic novels help our students to read. Follow them on Instagram at Comic Fest Waco. All right, D. Scott here, and we're on site at 524 Waco, West Waco Drive.
West Waco Drive.
I'm with Tim Packer, who's the Executive Director of The Cove. Without any further introduction from me, let's hear from Tim Packer. Tell us about The Cove.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me on. And this is something dear to my heart and love talking about. But The Cove, Heart of Texas, is a nonprofit working here based out of Waco, but serving the Heart of Texas region, so McLennan County and 5 surrounding counties. And we work with high school students experiencing homelessness or housing instability. We really focus on helping those youth overcome the barriers that homelessness and housing insecurity brings, helping them make this positive transition into adulthood, primarily through graduating successfully from high school and having a positive next step, whether that's training, work, joining the military, or whatever is best for them.
Looking at the website, there's information that's there. And one of the things that I'll say is surprising and maybe disappointing is the number of youths in the area that are being affected by homelessness.
Yeah, absolutely. And youth homelessness in particular is often unseen. It's people are familiar with seeing people at like the junction of New Road and Franklin, or some of these other kind of bigger intersections, or sometimes walking around downtown. But youth homelessness is largely unseen, and that also makes it quite difficult to count overall. The Cove in 2024 served 190 distinct youth We had about 2,500 service contacts with those youth across the year. The actual count, young people, high school age young people experiencing homelessness has varied over the years, but in our kind of heart of Texas region, the estimates are about 700 to 800.
So you served about 190 out of 700.
Yeah.
A lot of students reached, but a lot that need outreach.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about some of the services that you're providing. What are some of the needs that you're meeting?
Yeah, sure. So the Cove provides 5 services primarily. The main 2 that we're kind of best known for is our after-school program during the school semesters, Monday through Thursday, 5 till 8 p.m. And then during the summer break, daytime schedule. And then our outreach program, so being on campus with school districts. We have partnership agreements with WACO ISD, Midway, and La Vega ISD. And we have a 4th one, which I'll unfortunately can't announce just now, but hoping to announce in February, and that's exciting. But those agreements mean that we can go on campus and we can do attendance recovery and transport the youth and things like that. But we're also a drop-in service, so Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. in the morning till 5 p.m. or 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Youth can just literally show up at the door, access some of our basic needs provisions like shower, laundry, meals, support to access emergency shelter or longer term shelter. We do a lot of work around getting essential IDs, like whether that's a driving license or a state ID, securing copies of birth certificates and things like that. One of the other big work that we do is about helping our youth positively engage with their schools. And so the first question we ask pretty much is, which school district should you be in, and are you going to school? We really firmly believe that our youth need to be in school, and we want to really make that a positive experience for them as best as we can. After school program outreach, drop-in, we have paid tutors as part of the team, so after school and on the school campuses in WACO ISD. We have people going on and doing kind of remedial and kind of catch-up work with our students just to help them do those missed assignments. And one of the issues our youth particularly face is struggles with attendance, and so we often see a lot of very low attendance rates. That's one of the things that we really target because one, it's necessary to address that in order for them to graduate high school, but also having that stability and structure of the school environment, we believe is positive for them. And then the 5th one, which I just want to mention, is a program we started last year, supported by the Cooper Foundation, one of the philanthropic foundations here in Waco, and that's called a family advocate role. And that's really about helping our youth and their families have better problem-solving conversations. And so let's see if we can take some of the tension out of those environments. The idea being that we can either prevent homelessness for a young person or as quickly as possible resolve it through reunification. And we have to be very conscious of safety issues and concerns, and so unfortunately a lot of the youth that we see have experienced significant trauma in their lives, and regularly, but thankfully not too regularly, have to kind of deal with some of the fallout of those things, whether it's through mandatory reporting or accessing mental health services through behavioral health network or other providers here in the community.
I want to talk a little bit about the facility here. You just mentioned the words mandatory reporting.
Yes.
When you're in the biz, as they say, you understand what that means.
Yep.
But for those listening, what is mandatory reporting?
Yeah, sure. So an agency is a mandatory reporter where if they suspect or identify any abuse or neglect, they have to inform the authorities. And so primarily that's going to be Child Protective Services or Waco Police Department for us, or one of the other neighboring police departments. But these are situations where there is, like I said, abuse or neglect going on and the well-being of a child or a sibling, or perhaps somebody else. It could be a threat to somebody else's situation, and we have to take those seriously. And it is the law that if we don't report it, we get into trouble, and so we report it.
A lot of the causes of homelessness are not the student's fault.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
And, homelessness, we could probably talk for the next couple of hours about the causation of homelessness.
Yeah, let's go through some of those causes, though, because, as I said, this is not the student's fault
Yep.
that led them into this need, We talked about mandatory reporting, where if there's abuse or other issues where authorities need to be involved.
Yep.
You have to bring that up. Regardless of what the student says, please don't tell anybody.
Yep.
You don't get to not
It's hard
say.
to keep secrets.
Right.
And, we have that conversation with our youth. It's like, if you tell us something we have to report, we will report it, and we will help you through that process. We will support you as best as we can. And I think one of the things that I'm really proud of the team is that where we've had to do that, pretty consistently we've managed to retain the relationship with the youth and continue to work and support them and help them work through that situation. And I'll come back to the causation question just in a second, but one of the kind of things that we say here, and my team are kind of pretty sick of me saying it, is consequences without rejection. And so we want our youth to experience, like, for their behavior, and both positive and negative, there are consequences. Like I have 3 daughters, like any parent is going to be familiar with that. But also we want to have the without rejection side of it. And so we want to help our youth learn, but also know that they can count on a relationship and a positive relationship with the staff and the volunteers and interns that we have here. But in terms of the causes of homelessness, the overwhelming driver of that is poverty, a lack of resources, both financial and in terms of coping, and relational capital would be a kind of academic word, but having relationships that you can rely on to help you in difficult situations, and combined with substance misuse and just complex family dynamics, real high level of mental ill health, undiagnosed or diagnosed but or inadequately treated, and particularly for the way that affects young people is that they are absorbing that in their environment, and so when we talk about trauma, it's not just a mental thing, it's also a physical thing. And so often the coping mechanisms that they have for dealing with rejection or anger or failures that happen and have happened in their life can look all kinds of different ways, and that's applies to the parents as well as to the youth. And so we take this approach called positive youth development, which is similar but not the same as trauma-informed care, which some people mean. And that's, instead of saying like, why have you done something bad, start to say, what happened to you, and recognizing that behaviors amongst our youth and amongst our parents is largely because they're trying to handle and cope and deal with and process these complex things that have happened in their life. Again, parents probably see this in that, when your child is misbehaving or doing things that they have been asked not to do, a lot of the time it's because they're just trying to process and learn, and their brains are just trying to process and learn as well. And what we try and do here is say, okay, how do we build on from this? Like, how do we grow from this? What strengths do you have as an individual that we can build on, and try and really see the youth despite the circumstances? So today's guest is Tim Packer, Executive Director here at the Cove. We are on location. So let's talk about the facility. When I came in here, you gave me a tour. Yep. Of the facility, and this is a drop-in facility. Correct. You have offices here, but you also provide services, products. Yep. We're really pleased with the space, really proud of like the condition of it, and try and create this kind of as welcoming environment as possible, and just things like having comfy chairs for our youth, and soft spaces and chill out spaces. And so in the building, throughout the building, we have a whole range of supplies that our youth are going to need, from like hair care, healthcare products, to food, both non-perishable pantry items through to fresh fruits and vegetables, and occasionally some candy and kind of sweeter snacks, but also shower, laundry facilities. We have a range of kind of basic clothing, so like undergarments and some like exercise shorts and t-shirts and things like that. We have school supplies, a whole range of what is a teenager who's struggling with their housing going to need when they come in their building. And one of the things we try and do here is help the youth feel that they have an ownership of the space. And so we engage them consistently in what do they need, what do they want, what are they liking, what could we have more of, how do they want to use different spaces. Yeah, we've got office space as well, and so counseling spaces, we've got chill out spaces, we have weighted blankets sometimes to provide just a little bit of comfort. And then ping pong. If I don't mention the ping pong table, my staff will be upset with me.
I was struck by the mural that's in here.
Yeah, so one of the things when you come through the kind of main entrance area and come into the building proper, the first thing most people see is this mural painted on one of the walls and really takes kind of a dominant kind of position in that kind of main entrance way. It's called A Message of Hope. It was designed and painted by 3 of our youth in 2022. They worked with a teaching artist from Creative WACO to come up with the idea, pitch it to our board, and then do the work. We love it. We see it all over the place. If you go to our website, if you go there, it's right there on the kind of landing page. There's 3 kind of main components to that. There's this bird that's like setting off in kind of flight. That really represents the youth thriving. And then there's this kind of rock formation as like a secure, safe foundation, which represents the cove. And then there's this trail of puzzle pieces, and that represents all of the different pieces that have had to come together across community, school, family, themselves as individuals. And I always think of it being kind of both the experiences, negative and positive, that they've had, but also all of the skills and different kind of identities, whether it's a creative identity or a caring identity, and all of these things coming together to make this youth. And when I started at the Cove in September 21, instantly drawn to it and have tried to just use that wherever possible. So it's on our ID cards, it's on our business cards, it's on a lot of our publicity material. And again, just art just really connects, and it really connects our youth. We do a lot of artwork here.
Plus the opportunity for the students to have gone through the process to put together a pitch and actually take leadership in that. So they learn from that. Now they have a tangible item that they can hang their hats on. Other youths who come in see that and can know their peers did this. They created that. Let's talk about the partnerships that you have with other organizations. You work with youth up to 18 years of age that are in school and helping them to graduate and get that high school diploma.
So our vision at the Cove is to end youth homelessness in the heart of Texas. And that's a really big vision, just in terms of explaining it, what we mean by ending homelessness generally, but ending youth homelessness specifically, is that it becomes rare, brief, and non-recurring. So homelessness is prevented wherever possible. If it does happen, it's for as short as time as possible. And if it has happened and somebody has moved out of homelessness and back into secure housing, then it doesn't happen again. That definition is something that's used internationally. Been a lot of kind of attention around having like a core, what do we mean by ending youth homelessness, recognizing that we can't control all of the variables in that situation, but when it does happen, we have an effective response to it. And we recognize that at the Cove, we have a very specific role in that, and particularly around helping our youth graduate high schools. So one of the terms I use is having this successful transition to adulthood. But in order to do that, we need to be working with the schools, and we work with the schools, but also a whole range of partners, whether it's Texas State Technical College, McLennan Community College. I was at Baylor with some of our students back in December to the esports tournament that was being hosted there, but also other service partners and communities. So our building is owned by Methodist Children's Home. They've been a fantastic partner and just helping out in a whole range of different ways, having a real synergy between the two services. But we work with Behavioral Health Network, Communities and Schools, Heart of Texas Goodwill, the Advocacy Center, Family Abuse Center, Salvation Army, like a whole range of different partners, Caritas. I'm definitely forgetting some, and so I apologize if you hear this and I've missed you. But you know, whatever our youth needs, we're going to go and try and find it.
But it really puts a light on that there's a network of organizations that are coming together to fill the need to help end the homelessness, non-recurring. I love that. Rare. Neither you or I are Texas natives.
No.
I came from Oregon. You can probably tell by my accent. So tell us about your background. You mentioned that you came here in 21.
21,
Into the Cove.
And into the US.
Into the US. So let's go back.
I often kind of like to joke with people that when they ask, like, where are you from? And I'll say Lubbock or Alabama or, you know, just some quite random, obviously false thing. But no, I born in Scotland, in the UK. I've lived in England, but most of my life in Scotland. Attended Edinburgh University, 1999 to 2003. So lived in Edinburgh until 2021, worked there. My first degree was actually computer science. While I was doing that degree, loved and hated it. Really kind of was wrestling with what am I going to do after this. I don't know if I want to sit and work at a computer for the rest of my life. I spend a lot of time at my computer, which is kind of how it goes. I had the opportunity to do a graduate development program with an organization called the Navigators, working with students. It's a kind of a Bible study discipleship program. It's a US-based organization, do a lot of work there, and worked as a small group. And while I was there, I had a really formative experience through a dream that prompted me to start asking questions and searching for, is working with the homeless something that I need to be exploring? And that led to me initially volunteering in a soup kitchen, kind of advice hub in Edinburgh, and then working in a night shelter, working in community support, and then eventually transitioning into the funding side with the City of Edinburgh. And then just kind of constantly ask questions like, okay, I can help you in your housing situation. How do we address the 3,500 people that have been identified as homeless in Edinburgh? And it's been significantly higher than that in Edinburgh. Yeah, just like, how do we do things at a broader scale and address the kind of fundamentals of why people become homeless? And early on in my transition to doing the funding work is I started working with youth-facing services. For a part of it, worked on a placement in the north of Edinburgh in a community where the film Trainspotting was filmed, Muir House in West Pilton, and working around a group of teenagers and their families. And those teenagers were involved in high-tariff crime, so mobbing and rioting, arson. Some of them were in prison for murder, aggravated assault, sexual assault, all really tough stuff. Like, how do we change these circumstances, particularly in a community that has had multiple generations of struggling? And I had the opportunity to start my PhD program while I was doing that work. Got really driven by why do young people become homeless specifically, and what are the best ways in policy and practice to respond to youth situations. And finished up my graduated in December of 2022. Youth Homelessness and the Transition to Adulthood is the title of my PhD. But my wife is from WACO, and so all of her family, her kind of immediate family, are here. So I've been visiting WACO on and off since 2005. When I was here, I think it was in 2018, I had the opportunity to give a talk. But I gave a presentation. I met Kelly Atkinson, who's my predecessor as the executive director here at the Cove. And so when I got my green card to move to the US at the start of 2021, one of the first people I reached out to was Kelly and said, like, hey, know of anybody who can use my skill set? And she was like, yeah, we're actually advertising for a chief operating officer just now. Why don't you apply? And so I applied, was successful, moved here on September 15th, 2021, started the Cove in September 2022. Kelly told me that she was stepping down at the beginning of December 21, and I took over as executive director February 4th, 2022.
That's a good journey.
Yeah.
And,
and here I am.
We'll have to do another story when we talk about how you and your wife met.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But right now, let's talk about the future.
Yeah.
What's in store for the youth of the area?
Yep.
How do people get involved? What can people do to help?
Yeah, certainly. Particularly kind of high school aged youth, but probably middle school and high school aged youth are some of the most vulnerable groups of people that we see when there are kind of large scale like macroeconomic shocks. And so when you look at the tech bubble and or dot-com bubble, the recession in 2008 through to 2010-ish, we see a bit of a bump from 2016 as well. And then with COVID, we have seen a significant impact on those youth, but I really have this sense that there is still more to come in terms of the fallout from COVID, in terms of how it affects teenage youth. And that's largely because the youth that we are beginning to see now were in their kind of late elementary, maybe early middle school, lost significant parts of their learning. And so literacy and numeracy and these core skills are struggling, but also the developmental side of growing into kind of effective working memory, delayed gratification, empathy for others, emotion regulation, and all of these sort of things have taken a real knock. And the resources that families have were largely expended beyond their means during those years of COVID. And so I'm hopeful that things will continue, but expecting to see the needs continue to be present, continue to be at quite a high level. And one of the things that we've seen is, particularly over kind of holidays and Christmas kind of periods, is we often see less youth, but with higher levels of need. And that's often when a lot of the other support systems around the community have maybe quietened for the break and things like that. So looking forward for the Cove, our big thing is to continue improving and getting better at identifying youth who need assistance, and so that's making it easier for people to refer into the service. Most of our referrals come through the school districts just now, but we get people walking in off the streets, or WACO PD, or Child Protective Services, or other agencies that refer to us. WACO ISD had a really positive graduation rate, and we try and target at least being on track with where the general cohort is for our seniors to graduate, and so that's one of the big targets that we have. In terms of how people can get involved with this work, there's a whole range of things. We have voluntary opportunities, so people can participate in the after-school program. That's Monday through Thursday, semester time, 5 till 8. And that's really about helping our youth engage with the program. And so building relationships, encouraging them to hey, let's go do the workout together. I bet I can do more push-ups than you can, and usually I can't. Particularly the guys that are playing basketball or football, they kind of pretty strong. But the volunteering thing is really about having a positive impact on the youth that we have. And but then throughout the year, there's a whole range of different opportunities. I have partnered with Southern Roots Brewery for their Waco Block Party. We're going to have a presence there, and they've chosen the Cove to be supported through that event. In September, we'll have our annual fundraiser. We're just waiting for the Baylor games to be released so that we know we don't want to clash with a home Baylor game for our fundraiser. That's definitely not a way to be successful. But then also through the year, if people are following our social media, Facebook and Instagram at the Cove Waco, we will post out kind of specific or timely needs that we have. On our website, there's a whole bunch more information about ways to give, both physical items and financially. And we are a nonprofit, and we rely on that. And it's about 60% of our income comes from either businesses that sponsor us or individual donors in the community. And also, we just love to hear from people. If people want to know more about the work and come in for a visit or for a tour, just to find out how they best can connect, and then they just need to reach out at good email address for that is hello@thecovewaco.org.
Dr. Tim Packer, Executive Director here at the Cove, thecovewaco.org.
Yep.
Thanks for taking the time.
I appreciate
I love learning about it.
on.
Thank you for protecting our future by protecting our youth.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The WACO Experience, An American Story, is a production of D. Scott Smith Company, all rights reserved. Thank you for listening.